Big news today, guys. StarCraft 2 patch, brand new one, is out. This is from October 21st. I woke up to this news. I have not even gone through all these patch notes other than just glancing at this first one before I decided to just fire up the stream and do this. So let's go through this. I'm going to be talking about my thoughts. I'm kind of raw dogging this reaction. I haven't actually read through it ahead of time and had time to think about it. So this is going to be me pretty much going off the cuff. So, greetings from the StarCraft Community Balance Council. After around 7 months since the last patch, we are happy to present the next major multiplayer balance update featuring changes for 14 units and 10 buildings, as well as 2 new abilities, which is crazy. I didn't think we would ever have a patch that would be this drastic. So let's get into it. I feel the previous patch has mostly achieved its goals, fixing community pain points around Widow Mines and Cyclone, and slightly helping Protoss players early and mid-game against Terrans. However, the current patch has a couple of ambitious goals outlined below. The first goal is to nerf defensive and camping playstyles for all races. Excuse me. Both related to early and late game on the higher levels of play. We will target specific units, buildings, and abilities suited for camping to promote more active gameplay across all stages of the game. The second goal is to continue reshaping Protoss tools for higher level gameplay. We believe there is still a major gap between how the Protoss race plays and feels on the highest level of play and the levels below. Current set of changes aims to make Protoss race. I feel like this was written by a non-English native speaker. Current set of changes aims to make the Protoss race slightly more efficient with the strongest and smartest execution while helping Terran and Zerg players against Protoss on lower levels. The third goal would be to provide strong playstyle alternatives for various matchups. Zergs might be now better equipped to use the ground-based armies against mass air strategies, and some of the Terran mech units are now more efficient in harassment or certain straight-up fight scenarios. Lastly, we would like to continue adding overall gameplay and quality of life improvements across all levels of play. Okay, excuse me. I've had this cough for like 3 weeks, so I'm going to be probably clearing my throat a lot more than even normal. Here. So apologies in advance. Protoss changes. Nexus. The shield battery overcharge ability is removed. New ability added, energy overcharge. Energy overcharge costs 50 energy and recharges 100 energy of the targeted allied unit or structure with a maximum range of 8. So this is when I stopped reading. When I was like laying in bed, looking at my phone, I'm like, all right, this is crazy. We're going to just talk about this here live. Developer comment, while being one of the most important tools in Protoss defenses, shield battery overcharge is also one of the most frustrating abilities to play against. And it's overall more efficient at the lower level of play, unlike other defensive techniques like transfuse or mass repair. Instead of this ability, there is a new tool which can help empower Protoss units like Sentry, Oracle, or High Templar during defense. The ability can still be used to recharge shield battery energy, but is expected to perform much weaker in this scenario other than shield battery overcharge. Yeah, I do think the past shield battery with overcharge, it was a bit of a victim of kind of being really easy to use, very kind of over-automized almost. I never thought we would have a change this big with energy overcharge. So this is really interesting. I mean, the idea that you could give Templars more energy to cast more storms, I think is pretty cool. Making it like a moment that you can kind of utilize micro a little bit more. I think it's a cool idea. I have no idea how this will affect the way the game looks. That's such a big change. The shield battery, HP increased from 150 to 200. Considering this ability might be a direct Protoss nerf in a lot of early and mid-game scenarios, shield batteries will now have increased survivability to slightly compensate for that. And the PTR games will be more closely monitored to see if any additional buffs are required in this area. No strong opinion from me on that. Sounds fine. It will definitely have a major impact on the early game. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how people react to that. Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see how pros are going to handle this. The early game is going to be a lot more interesting. It always gets more interesting when you have crazy changes like this early on. Shield and HP change. I'm sorry, this is on the Colossus. Shield and HP changed from 150-200 to 100-250. With no battery overcharge, having more shields is no longer a crucial key for the Protoss units like Colossus. Instead, having more HP will be helpful against EMP and Protoss versus Terran. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it'll be good versus EMP and be more rewarding for armor upgrade investments. Seems like a good change, actually. The Tempest. Supply cost decreased from 5 to 4. Damage point decreased by about 28%. Attack range versus air decreased from 14 to 13. The Tempests are a very important late game tool for Protoss players, but their high supply cost combined with an average damage output makes the ultimate Protoss army weaker in head-to-head fights. This is true. The set of changes will help high-level Protoss players to fit a bit more power in their maxed armies and have more opportunities for micro while slightly decreasing units' maximum attack range and not strengthen mass Tempest armies. Interesting. It does seem like Protoss suffer a little bit in trying to get these kind of ultimate late-game armies. Protoss has always been a race that it seems like you have to have the right configuration of units, and it has to be highly diversified. And one of the things you'll see in a lot of late-game matches is that Protoss loses like a huge chunk of a key set of units and can't remake them the same way like a Zerg can. Anyways, that's an interesting change. We'll see what happens with that. Immortal mineral cost decreased from 275 to 250. Weapon cooldown increased from... it's increased by about 9.6%, so almost 10%. The damage output from Immortals seemed to be too high in the Protoss versus Zerg matchup across all levels of play, while Immortals' mineral cost is slightly decreased to compensate for the DPS nerf. This set of changes should help Zerg survive against various Protoss mid-game and late-game attacks. Okay. Disruptor, Purification Nova, Radius increased to 1.5 from about 1.37. The damage has been increased from 145 with plus 55 for shields to 100 with plus 100 for shields. Disruptors might be very difficult to play against on lower levels, but on the highest level, their efficiency dropped down significantly after the previous changes. This set of changes is aimed to bring back some of the Disruptors' old power. I like that. I did not like when they reduced the Disruptors' radius previously. While at the same time making the single disruptor hits less punishing towards the worst case scenario. With the new damage output, disruptors will no longer one-shot units like Marauders, Roaches, and Ravagers, while being more effective against units like Marines, Ghosts, Banelings, and Hydras, as well as having more potential in certain PvP scenarios. I don't know. I kind of like the high damage output. You know, I do feel like on some level, I mean, when we're worried about lower level play, I feel like we're so far away from having to worry about lower level play. I get it that they want to be inclusive and welcome all players. I don't know. We'll see about that one. I'm not so sure, to be honest. Let's go to the next change here. The mothership mineral gas and supply costs increased from 306 to 408. Shield and HP increased by 100 on each side. Maximum damage increased from 6 times 6 to 6 times 4 times 4 maximum number of targets. So Mothership now targets 4 units at the same time. While we are happy with the previous set of changes, which brought the Mothership back to Protoss versus Zerg late game, which I think you want to have, this is like, you know, the one kind of super endgame capital ship unit. I think it's important that they have this unit have a role. There was a period where the Mothership was like the worst unit you could get, basically. Anyways, continuing on. which brought the mothership back to Protoss versus Terran late game and improved its efficiency in other matchups. We also appreciate the community feedback about this unit losing an important part of its identity. This set of changes brings back full mothership power with its widely known 400 to 400 cost, while also adding a unique ability to target up to 4 units at the same time. The single target DPS of the mothership is now reduced, but the overall damage output will be much higher. Okay. These are interesting changes. I think these overall seem pretty good. We've definitely, for a while, seen Protoss underperform. I feel like when I hear a lot of pro gamers talk about this, there's sort of this weird narrative where they're like, no, it's actually pretty good, or like it might be too strong. And I don't know, man. I mean, we have these tournaments for a reason. If you put, like, if you look at like the crazy success of Zerg, in various eras of StarCraft, like it's kind of undeniable. Okay, this race seems to be very good, and you want to have a more even distribution of champions and players. So I think these are some cool changes. I'm especially interested in that. What is it called again? For the battery or the Nexus? Where is this? Energy overcharge. Okay. So yeah, let's see what happens with that. Terran changes. Bunker, missile turret, sensor tower. Salvage ability added for the missile turret and the sensor tower. Can I tell you guys something? I was never a huge fan of salvage. It might have been one of my least favorite things when I first started my very first game of StarCraft 2. I don't get why you can be able to make any kind of important pivotal defensive or rush structure and then sell it and recover. I feel like, what makes a rush exciting is that the stakes are high for both the player who's being rushed and also the player who's rushing. And I think the fact that they can just ditch it, combined with the fact that Terran buildings lift off and fly really fast in StarCraft 2, this is one thing I think StarCraft 1 did better. You could not salvage the bunkers, and you could not get your barracks back home quickly. Buildings flew slowly, which I think is good. Granted, there are a lot of things I think StarCraft 2 does better than StarCraft 1. I never got why they had this. This is a thing from Command & Conquer where you could, like, in the original Command & Conquer, I didn't play all of the Command & Conquers, but I'm sure it's probably in all of them. You could sell out your buildings, regain resources. It's an interesting mechanic, and I'm not even opposed to it being in the game in StarCraft. I just don't know why you'd have it for, like, bunkers, turrets, and sensor towers. This will be interesting to see how it'll impact late game TVZ, assuming that TVZ remains a matchup that can be split mapped more easily. I think we've had a lot of games where Terran kind of just has to have that one base left over for Zerg to die out, but it feels like now Terran can easily ditch or abandon defenses. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. I don't know. Maybe I'm theory crafting too hard, but I never was a big fan of salvage with this. I felt like it was a misplacement of the ability with the structure. Never made sense to me. I don't have a great application for where salvage should have been, but it's interesting to see that they kind of leaned into salvage a little bit. Developer comment says, this change will allow Terrans to be more efficient while moving from one defensive point to another, while at the same time increasing their overall investment in early game attacks featuring bunkers, as a salvage is now much easier to counter. Okay, well, let's see what happens with that. I'm trying to keep an open mind here. Planetary armor decreased from 3 to 2. Sounds good to me. Sensor tower mineral and gas cost decreased from 125 to 100 to 150. Radar range decreased. So that's a 34% reduction in size. The combination of planetary fortresses and sensor towers is a very powerful camping tool in various late game scenarios. This set of changes makes planetary fortresses slightly weaker against basic army units like Zerglings, Marines, and Zealots, and making sensor towers much less efficient in covering the whole map. However, sensor towers might be useful in early stages of the game, considering the majorly reduced cost and added salvageability. So, I mean, camping is also an issue in StarCraft 1. I think the camping dilemma in StarCraft 2 comes in part from the fact that it is easier to mass spam out abilities and defend while camping and taking advantage of the whole defender's advantage in the game. Because of the way that the user interface is designed, where it's easy to select everything, it's easy to spam abilities out. Like in PvZ, StarCraft 1, we've been working on our Protoss versus Zerg. I have to manually spam out each storm, manually reload my Reaver with Scarabs, and do everything else that I need to do there. If it was StarCraft 2 with the StarCraft 1 units, my Scarabs would auto-generate. I could grab as many Templars as I want defending and just space out my Psy Storms, and it just would be easier to defend. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's always good they're trying to address this, but I do think this is a larger issue and will be an issue with RTS games going forward, as long as you have like smart casting on and automation on for certain things. Like, to be honest, I like the fact that and look, I would win more games if my Scarabs automatically remade in StarCraft 1. But I kind of like the fact that I have to go back and manually do it, and they make me do the work. So this is a cool change. I think Terran will still be pretty solid at defending, but the armor decrease here on the planetary is probably a welcome one. There's been plenty of moments where it seems like the Terran's out of position and can kind of just hang on because of that upgrade. Orbital Command. Extra supply call down now also increases the HP of the supply depot to 500, immediately repairing it. That's great. That is a cool idea. There's going to be a lot of great in-game moments where Terran could have died, but if they're smart, they're going to come down here and make like a super depot. Yeah, that's a really exciting change. These are the kind of ideas that I love, because I look at this and I can already envision a game that I'm watching where Zerg's about to bust this down. Maybe there are a couple of Banelings that are going to be hitting this depot, and like as it's being hit, the depot lands and it barely saves it. And it's just going to be a great moment. Developer comment says, extra supplies are rarely utilized in the higher level of play. This is true, and are mostly considered to be an emergency tool in case of supply blocks. This change brings additional value to this ability, allowing it to become a niche defensive tool against various offenses and counterattacks. This is a great idea. I can't believe we didn't have this earlier. It's one of those things I look at and I go, yeah, of course. Hellion. Blue Flame upgrade bonus damage versus light increased from +5 to +9. As the Blue Flame upgrade is rarely utilized as a harassment tool, this change is added to allow Hellions with Blue Flame to two-shot workers of all races. Yes, I love this. This might also help underused mech playstyles in all matchups. This is a great addition. Because in a lot of mech games, you end up with this like excess of minerals, and you don't really have like a whole lot you can spend it on, other than turrets that you can now salvage. So I think this is a great idea. This will make mech games a lot more interesting. Being able to two-shot workers is huge. Liberator. Advanced ballistics effect changed from providing +2 range in defense mode to increasing the radius in defense mode from 5 to 6.25, so a 56% area increase. Smart servos upgrade. This is the funny thing when they name these upgrades. I actually, in both StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2, a lot of the actual names for the upgrades, like I don't know what they are. I have my own name for it I have some basic term for it when I cast. This upgrade is now also affecting Liberators with smart servos. Liberator siege time is decreased. Okay. From 2.89 to 2.12, so a 26% reduction, and unsiege time is decreased by 23%. Okay. It says, despite the previous advanced ballistics nerf, Liberator's maximum attack range is still an important limitation for the map-making process. Oh, yeah, as well as frustrating mechanic to play against. Yeah, I agree. This set of changes is aimed to test a different approach for the unit, which further decreases its maximum range in line with the Tempest changes, but allows to cover more area. Yeah, I think this is fair. I mean, it's a neat trick that you can get behind their, you know, a lot of these maps are built on, like, I guess you could call them floating platforms. So there's like a vacancy where nothing can land around all the edges, and then Liberators just park out there and kind of punish units, and you have to tack up into something to get rid of it. I think this is good. I like this. I'm really liking these Terran changes. The Thor, excuse me, explosive payload, splash damage is increased from 6, so +6 versus light, to 8 +4 versus light. Explosive payload splash radius. I just realized my camera's covering this up. Sorry, guys. Explosive payload splash radius is increased from 0.5 with 100% splash damage to 0.5. Wait, is it the same thing? Explosive payload splash radius is increased from 0.5 with 100% splash damage to 0.5 with 100% splash damage, 0.75 with 75% splash damage, and 1.25 with 50% splash damage. Okay. They said that the Thor's explosive payload mode, while being default for the unit, is rarely utilized outside of TVZ against Mutalisk, and overall is much weaker than its high-impact counterpart. This experimental set of changes is aimed to test a very different approach to the explosive payload, allowing the Thor to deal much more damage to all types of units in a cost of major attack range reduction. Yeah, let's try it out. I don't have any qualms with that. Zerg changes. The Queen cost has been increased to 175. Interesting. So Zerg is going to be a little bit more unstable early on. The hatchery mineral cost decreased. Wow. From 300 to 275. I wonder why they did that. Huh. I never thought I'd ever see the mineral cost of a hatchery changed. Spinecrawler build time decreased from 36 to 32. Damage increased from 25 +5 versus armor to 30. So looking at these three changes here, I think they want to make Zerg a little bit less, like the Queen is kind of a panacea against all rushes, and I think they want to try to force Spinecrawlers as a more of a default tool to stop rushes. One of the things with Queens is that besides the fact that they can like wreck all air and transfuse and are pretty good at fighting stuff on the ground, once you've won the fight, you can then immediately cover the whole map with creep and go right back to transfusing. So it kind of lets you parlay immediately back into macro, where a Spinecrawler might be a better defense, but it comes with the Zerg being penalized in a way where they had to sacrifice a drone as well as the resources to make the Spinecrawler. So, I mean, I think this is good. I will tell you guys, I do think Zerg is let's just take Legacy of the Void as a whole. Zerg's done very well. I think the game should be made a little bit harder for Zerg in ways that are interesting. And it does feel, and just looking at this, and I know this is a pretty kind of, what I'm saying here may not come true at all. I think that this is kind of a cool idea to keep the Zerg a little bit more honest. And you can at least punish Zerg a little bit more with pressure if the Spinecrawler can make faster and the Queen's a little bit more expensive. Damage increased for the Spore Crawler from 15 to 20, and HP decreased. All right. Developer comment. Zerg playstyles against Terran and Protoss players on higher levels are mainly focused on defensive gameplay featuring mass queens. The efficiency of such defensive playstyles with strong execution means that Terran and Protoss players might also prefer to stay passive, which doesn't lead to active early game. This set of changes, while not majorly influencing Zerg openings with a limited number of queens, is aimed to make Mass Queen's playstyle less affordable. Spine Crawler and Spore Crawler changes will help compensate for potentially smaller defensive impact from queens. At the same time, the Spore Crawler HP was still decreased to make sure the Spore Crawler damage increase is not utilized for more efficient late-game camping. Just muted my mic there so I could not cough in your ear. So it's basically saying what I was talking about. Okay, changes for the Hydralisk. Move speed on creep with muscular augments upgrade decreased from 5.11 to 4.83. So a 5.5% reduction. New ability added, Dash. Dash is researched. The Hydralisk Den requires Hive. The upgrade costs 100 minerals and 100 gas. Takes 64 seconds. What? Oh my God. Dash is an active, non-targeted ability with 10 seconds cooldown. Upon its use, Hydralisk receives 60% move speed bonus for... wait, let me read this again. Sorry. Dash is an active, non-targeted ability with 10 seconds cooldown. Upon its use, Hydralisk receives 60% move speed bonus for under a second. The idea... Okay, holy shit, look at him go. Hold on. Whoa. The idea of this ability is to add micromanagement potential for the Zerg unit against massed area of effect. Sorry, I'm like, my mind's getting melted here just thinking about this. The idea of this ability is to add more micromanagement potential for the key Zerg unit against mass area of effect damage spells like Psystorm and Purification Novas. Combined with other changes like Microbial Shroud, I can't read, this ability might unlock alternative ground-based Zerg playstyles against Protoss late-game army compositions without giving too much base power to the unit. Move speed on creep with muscular augments upgrade is slightly reduced to make sure Terran and Protoss harassment tools are not nerfed with this ability being added. That is interesting. So, one thing that happens when you're playing with Hydras is you need to win the fights if you're not on creep. If you start to run away, they just chase you down and kill you. But yeah, they could be dodging storms this way. That's going to be interesting. And, the Hydras are kind of a mainstay unit. So, I mean, we're going to have games that look very different. Infester. Microbial Shroud is now sticking to units, providing them with its effect for 3.6 seconds while off the Shroud. Interesting. Despite being very strong on paper, Microbial Shroud is not widely used in Zerg versus Protoss late game, mostly due to units under Shroud being vulnerable to area of effect damage spells. With Shroud sticking to units for 3.6 seconds outside of the actual Shroud area, Zerg players are now able to micro more freely while still enjoying the benefits of this Infester ability. Ultralisk. While moving, the Ultralisk is now able to push allied units. Oh, okay. Oh, that's funny. This is like something they also just did, I think, recently in Stormgate, where the bigger units can now move to the front. That'll be interesting. We feel that the previous Ultralisk size, attack, and cost changes were helpful to improve the state of the unit, but this additional change should help Zerg players across levels better utilize the Ultralisk strengths, avoiding cases where Ultralisks were stuck behind other allied units. I don't know how I feel about this. I think there is some art and beauty into trying to, have good formations and moving stuff through. Yeah, I mean, let's just see what happens. I always try to approach these things with an open mind. The Broodlord. Broodling HP is increased from 20 to 30. Broodling weapon cooldown decreased from... Sorry, this is the Broodlord, but it's what they changed was the Broodling. Okay. The Broodling, yeah, HP is increased. Broodling weapon cooldown decreased. Fixed the bug which prevented Broodlord from dealing full damage while shooting from maximum distance. The Broodlords seem to lose too much power in head-to-head fights after the previous set of changes. The Broodling changes are now reverted, which combined with the bug fix should help the unit perform better in various late game scenarios. Okay. The orbital scanner now has visual team color. Great. Sensor tower minimap uses team color. You know, sometimes when you read stuff like this, you go, why wasn't this here all the time? Command center, nexus, and hatchery now auto rally to mineral fields. All right. Workers waiting for refinery extractor simulator to finish do not count as idle. SCV RAM delay between moving while building adjusted. Yeah, these seem like quality of life fixes. Okay, so this is a really big update, guys. To be honest with you, I didn't think we would ever have an update this big in the era that we're living in, kind of post being nurtured by Blizzard and supported by Blizzard. I'm definitely excited to cast some games with this. I think the craziest things to me are the Hydralisk Dash and where is this? Whoops. Why do I keep forgetting this? The energy overcharge ability. I mean, that's going to make the game really interesting. And on a bigger note, I think what's important when looking at something like this is there's been massive speculation about will StarCraft 2 be at the Saudi Esports World Cup next year? What does this mean? What is the future of StarCraft? We've basically been in kind of a uncertain state with the old guard at Blizzard being out. And will our game be supported? And really, ESL have kind of come in and been, the paternal figures for the scene, as well as in the state of the game with these patches. The fact that there are this many changes that look this good, I would say, gives me a sense of optimism about how much StarCraft 2 we're going to have next year. So this is really good. This is really exciting stuff. And by the way, guys, I don't know what's going to happen with StarCraft 2 next year. The truth is, what is it? It's October 22nd of this recording. I literally never know what the full plans are for StarCraft 2 the following year because they haven't usually been finalized. But let's see what happens. I mean, if we can get a whole bunch more tournaments and continue the legacy of the game on, I think these are going to be some fun games to cast, and I think these are some great changes. And you know what's interesting about it is it almost feels like a new expansion in some ways. Like to have, that Hydralisk Dash. You're going to see that like in every game a Hydralisk is made, basically. So this is very cool. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for joining me. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think about these new changes in the game. Again, kind of crazy to wake up this morning and see that this is actually happening. Makes me super excited. If you ever want to join me where I make these recordings live, you can come to my Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/tastelesstv. And then see this little Tasteosis shirt? See that? You can get that at my merch shop at tastelessthreads.com. We got a bunch of other cool stuff. I'm sure you'll find something you like there. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in a future video. Bye-bye.